She walked up to me in the parking lot, her graduation robe flapping in the Chicago wind. I went to hug her, but she handed me a yellow manila envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Divorce papers," she said. Her voice was flat. "I'm a doctor now. I don't need a project manager dragging me down." I couldn't speak. "Look, Dave," she said. "You were helpful. You paid the bills. But that chapter is over. I'm starting my real life, and I need to cut the dead weight." 7 years. That's how long I'd spent building her dream while mine gathered dust. 7 years of working double shifts on infrastructure projects, hot summers laying asphalt, freezing winters checking structural concrete just so she could have the luxury of only focusing on school. 7 years of instant noodles for dinner, eaten alone at our small kitchen table. While she was out at study group dinners I knew I couldn't afford to join. 7 years of me saying no to my own friends, no to fishing trips, no to visiting my own family. Because every spare dollar, every hour of overtime, had to go into the Jessica Becomes a Doctor fund. And it was a fund, a massive one. I'd done the math just last month. Over $250,000 in student loan debt that I had co-signed, debt that I had been paying the interest on, just to keep it from crushing us before she even graduated. And her family, her wealthy, arrogant family, they never helped. Not 1 cent. But they were always there at holidays. Weren't they always standing in their pristine Chicago lakefront apartment, looking down on me? Her father, a man who'd inherited everything, once asked me in front of everyone what it felt like to be the hired help in my own marriage. I remember just smiling, clenching my fists in my pockets. I remember her mother looking at my hands, calloused, rough hands that built bridges and roads, and saying, "My Jessica has the hands of a surgeon. It's a shame she has to see." That, every day. Jessica just laughed along with them. She always did. "Oh, Dave doesn't mind," she'd say. "He likes working with his hands." I wasn't just her husband. I was the silent investor, the quiet, reliable utility, the man who made the spreadsheets, managed the bill payments, and absorbed the insults so she could chase her dream. I was the foundation she built her entire future on. And now, the second that future was secure, the first thing she did was discard me, like a used textbook, like dead weight. I looked at her, standing there in her graduation robe, holding our entire 7-year marriage in a cheap manila envelope. I looked at her wealthy, arrogant family, standing 20 feet away, smirking. They were watching the show. They were waiting for the hired help to finally get put in his place. They were waiting for me to break, to beg, to yell, to ask, "What about us? Jessica, what about everything I've done?" I felt a strange calm settle over me. The anger was there, but it was cold and clear. This wasn't a tragedy. This was a release. She was waiting. She had her script ready, the one where I crumble and she gets to be the strong, tragic woman who had to make a hard choice for her career. I decided I wasn't going to play my part. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a pen. The same pen I'd used to co-sign the $250,000 loan for her tuition. I didn't say a word. I took the envelope from her, used the hood of the car I'd just finished paying off, the car she'd already claimed in the papers as a desk, and signed my name. Clean, steady. I folded the papers, put them back in the envelope, and handed it to her. "Congratulations, Doctor," I said. My voice was steady. "You're free." Her mouth opened, a little O of confusion. This wasn't in her script. "Dave." "Wait," she stammered. "That's it, you're not. We need to talk about what I said. You were perfectly clear. I'm dead weight. I'm just lightening your load." I turned my back on her. Shocked. Furious family. I turned my back on the car and the life I had just financed into existence. I put my hands in my pockets and started walking. I could hear her call my name. Sharp and angry now. "Dave, you can't just walk away the car. How am I supposed to get home?" I kept walking. I didn't look back. I walked out of that university parking lot, past the wrought iron gates, and onto the bustling Chicago street. I was a man with nothing but the wallet in his pocket and the phone he was about to throw in a river. I had never felt so rich. I didn't go to our apartment. It wasn't our apartment. It was a shrine to her ambition. Paid for by my labor, I walked 3 blocks and checked into the first cheap motel I saw. The kind with a buzzing neon sign and walls thin as paper. I sat on the lumpy bed. And my phone, which I hadn't yet thrown away, started to light up. Ping. A text from Jessica. "Where are you? This is childish. Come back so we can talk." I stared at it. Not. I'm sorry. Not. What have I done? But this is childish. I was an inconvenience. I deleted the message. Ping. Seriously. Dave. My parents are furious about the scene you caused. You embarrassed me at my graduation. My scene. The scene where I quietly signed my own execution papers and left. The sheer audacity of it. I deleted the message. Ping. I need the car. And the apartment keys. You can't just leave me stranded. I almost laughed. She had her diploma, her 6-figure job offers, her entire arrogant family standing right there. And she was stranded. The calls started. I silenced them, one after another. Jessica. Her mother. Her father. This wasn't a breakdown. This wasn't a tantrum. This was an audit, a final accounting. And for 7 years, I had been the only one making deposits into an account she had just ruthlessly emptied. She wasn't sorry. She was inconvenienced. I had ruined her victory lap by not playing the part of the weeping, pathetic victim. I pulled out my laptop and connected to the motel's spotty Wi-Fi. There was nothing for me in Chicago. My friends were her colleagues. My social life was her department mixers. My life had been her life. Time to get my own. I opened a browser. Kayak. One-way flights. Where to? Not back home. Not near anyone who knew her name. I needed somewhere new. Somewhere growing. Somewhere that needed engineers to build things. Not just finance them. I looked at Denver. Too cold. Miami. Too humid. Then I saw it. Austin. Texas. It was booming. Tech. Infrastructure. A whole new skyline being built every year. They needed people who could build things. And more importantly, I remembered Jessica complaining about it after a conference she'd attended. It's just hot. She'd whine. All that dust and country music. It's not sophisticated. Perfect. It was the last place on earth she would ever think to look for me. I found a flight leaving at 6 a.m. the next morning. I entered my credit card information, my personal credit card. The one she never knew existed. The one I kept hidden in my wallet for a real emergency. I suppose this qualified. I clicked purchase. The confirmation email arrived. For the first time in 7 years, I felt my shoulders, which had been tight with the stress of her exams and her tuition and her family's judgment, finally drop. The weight, her weight, was gone. She wanted to cut the dead weight. She just had no idea she was the one holding the anchor. I turned my phone off. Not on silent. Off. I lay back on the thin motel pillow, fully clothed. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, I fell asleep instantly. No anxiety about her upcoming residency match. No stress about the next interest payment on her $250,000 loan. Just silence. I was no longer her husband. I was no longer her financier. I was no longer her helpful scaffolding. I was just Dave, and I was on my way to Austin. I woke up at 4 a.m. in that cheap motel. The buzzing sign outside the window painted the room in a sick, flickering red light. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt efficient. My flight to Austin wasn't until 6 a.m. I had work to do. I sat on the edge of the bed, pulled out my laptop, and began the final, professional phase of my disappearance. First, I called the landlord. The lease on our apartment, her apartment. Now, I guess was up for renewal in 2 months. Hi. This is Dave from 3B. I said when the property manager answered, "I'm calling to give my 30-day notice. I won't be renewing." "Oh," the man said, surprised. "We were expecting you to." "Isn't your wife staying? You'll have to ask her about that." I said, "The lease is solely in my name. I'm terminating it." I remembered signing it. Jessica had been too busy with finals to come with me. "You handle it." "Dave, you're good at that stuff." So I'd signed my name, and my name alone, to the legal document. What a lucky break. What a fortunate final convenience. Next, the bank. I logged into our joint account. There wasn't much left. My paycheck had always been siphoned off immediately, $2,000 for her tuition payment. Another $1,000 for the loan interest. Another for rent. Another for her car. Her small income from a part-time job her father had arranged for her barely covered groceries. I transferred exactly 50% of the remaining balance, a pathetic few $100s, into my new private account at a national bank she'd never heard of. Then I clicked the button, Close Account. A pop-up asked, "Are you sure?" I clicked, Yes. Then, the utilities. Electric, gas, water, all in my name. All paid automatically from my personal account. Click. Cancel service. Effective immediately. The internet. Canceled. Her streaming subscriptions. Her gym membership. Her monthly wine club box. All canceled. All those little invisible threads that had held her life together. All of them tied to my wallet. My name. I snipped them. One by one. With clinical precision. This wasn't revenge. This was an audit. I was simply balancing the books. I got to O'Hare as the sun was just starting to light up the horizon. I didn't check a bag. I walked through security, bought a large black coffee, and sat at the gate. I turned my phone on one last time. 47 missed calls. A string of texts from Jessica, each one more frantic and furious than the last. I powered the phone off completely and dropped it into a trash can as I boarded the plane. The plane took off. Pushing me back into the seat, I watched Chicago shrink below, a grid of lights fading into the clouds. And as I sat there, 30,000 feet in the air, the final piece of my old life clicked out of place. I finally understood. I'd spent 7 years thinking I was a support system, like a load-bearing wall, or a foundation, something permanent, something essential to the final structure. I was wrong. I was never part of the building. I was scaffolding. Think about it. You can't build a skyscraper without scaffolding. It's absolutely essential. It holds all the weight. It allows the workers to get to where they need to go. It takes a beating from the wind and the rain, and the entire time. Everyone knows it's temporary. Its entire purpose is to be used, abused. And then the second the building is finished, the second it can stand on its own, it gets torn down. It gets dismantled and thrown in a truck. Forgotten. While everyone admires the beautiful new structure it helped create, I wasn't betrayed. I was just dismantled. Jessica hadn't changed her mind about me. She had just finished the job. The realization didn't bring me grief. It didn't even bring anger. It brought an incredible, chilling sense of peace. You can't be mad at a blueprint for being a blueprint. You can't be mad at a tool for being used as a tool. You can only be mad at yourself for thinking you were anything else. That last bit of hurt, that last lingering question of why, it just evaporated. I wasn't running from a failed marriage. I was simply a contractor who had fulfilled his contract, packed up his tools, and was now moving on to the next job. When I landed in Austin, the blast of Texas heat felt like a new beginning. I walked out of the terminal, took a deep breath of air that didn't smell like her perfume or her family's judgment, and got in a cab. My old life was over. My new one was about to be built. And this time, I'd be the architect. 3 years. 3 years can feel like a lifetime, or it can pass in the blink of an eye. For me, it was a lifetime. A new one. Austin was everything Chicago wasn't. It was hot. It was sprawling. And it was unapologetically focused on building the future. I'd started as a site manager, But my 7 years of grinding in Chicago had made me good, really good. Within 18 months, I was promoted to chief engineer at one of the top firms in the city, overseeing major infrastructure projects. I didn't just have a job, I had a career. My career, I bought a small house in a neighborhood south of the river, with a big yard and a workshop for myself. I started hiking. I learned how to smoke a brisket properly. I was, for the first time in my adult life, genuinely, quietly happy. And I wasn't alone. Her name was Chloe. I'd met her at a tech meetup I'd gone to with a colleague. She was a UX divided by UI designer, brilliant and funny, with a laugh that made me feel like I could finally breathe. Our relationship was easy. It was balanced. She had her own life, her own career, her own ambitions. The first time I offered to pay for our dinner, she just laughed and said, "How about we split it, or you can get this one, and I'll get drinks next weekend." It was a partnership. I'd never had one of those. We'd been together for 2 years. Last month, on a quiet Tuesday night while we were grilling in the backyard, I asked her to marry me. She said yes before I'd even finished the sentence. My life was full. My past was a bad dream, a story I'd almost forgotten, until the phone rang. It was a Saturday morning. Chloe was at the farmer's market, and I was sketching out plans for a new deck. An unknown number from Chicago. My first instinct was to ignore it. I always did. But something made me pick it up. "Hello, Dave." Is this really Dave? The voice was familiar, but not one I'd heard in years. This is he. Who's this? It's Sarah. Jessica's. Well, I was her maid of honor. I stood up from my desk. Sarah. She'd always been the kindest of Jessica's friends, the one who would at least ask me about my day before turning back to Jessica. Sarah. Wow. It's been a long time. What's going on? I'm calling to apologize. Dave, she said. Her voice strained. I know this is out of the blue, but I have to. We all saw it. We all saw how she treated you, especially at the end. We saw how her family was, and none of us said anything. I never said anything, and I'm sorry. You were a good man. You didn't deserve any of that. I sat down. External validation. It was something I didn't know I needed. Thank you. Sarah, that means a lot. But why now, after 3 years, I heard her take a shaky breath. Because it's all falling apart for her. And she's crossed a line. A bad one. A cold feeling crept up my spine. What do you mean? She miserable. Dave. Her fresh start was a disaster. That surgical residency, it's 80 hours a week. Brutal. And the pay is nothing. Not compared to that $250,000 debt. Anyway, it's crushing her. She's living with 2 roommates in a tiny apartment. Her car just got repossessed. And her dream life is just debt and exhaustion. I was silent. I wasn't happy about it. I just felt nothing. It was the predictable outcome of a bad equation. Her family is furious. Sarah continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. But not at her for what she did to you. They're furious at her for letting you go. For letting the money train leave the station. They're pressuring her to fix it. They actually pooled their money $2,000 to hire a private investigator to find you. I gripped the phone. A private investigator. Yeah. About a year ago, they were convinced you'd want her back. That you were just, I don't know, pouting somewhere. But the PI failed. You. Dave. You're a ghost. He said you literally vanished. New state. New number. No, social media. He couldn't find a single trace. The trail went cold. So, what now? I asked. This was the reason for her call. I could hear her start to cry softly. Dave. This is why I'm calling. This is why I can't be her friend anymore. When the PI failed, she didn't stop. She got desperate. She did something. Illegal. What did she do? Sarah. She used her job. She's a surgical resident. She has high-level access to the hospital's network. She's been, for months, running searches. She used her hospital's access to the multi-state patient database. She was looking for you. The blood drained from my face. That was a violation. A massive, career-ending, federal law-breaking violation. She ran searches for Dave. Your last name, with an occupation listed as engineering or construction. She tried every state in the country. And 6 months ago, she got a hit. My stomach clenched. My routine physical 6 months ago, through my new employer's health insurance. She found you. Dave, the record listed your employer in Austin, Texas. She knows where you work. She's had this information for months. Just sitting on it. But now her car's gone, and her family is threatening to cut her off. And she's unraveling. She's been talking about it. She's obsessed. She thinks finding you is the answer. She thinks she can explain. She thinks she can get you back. I closed my eyes. She hadn't learned a thing. She wasn't just arrogant. She wasn't just entitled. She was unethical. She was corrupt. She was a person who would abuse her power, abuse the trust of patients, to fix her own personal problems. The last flicker of any possible sympathy I could have ever had for her turned to ice. Dave, Sarah asked, "Are you there?" "I'm here," I said, my voice cold and steady again. The voice I'd used in the parking lot 3 years ago. "Thank you for telling me. Sarah, you did the right thing. Please be careful," she whispered. "I don't think she's stable. I think she's coming for you." I hung up the phone. I looked out the window at the sunny Austin day, at the life I had built, my peace, my home. She wasn't coming here to apologize. She was coming here to take. She thought finding me was the end of her search. She had no idea it was the end of her. It happened 2 weeks later. It was a perfect Saturday morning in Austin. The sun was bright. The air was clear. And the farmer's market was packed. Chloe and I were walking hand in hand, planning a dinner party we were hosting that night. She was laughing about something one of her colleagues had said. And I was just happy. That deep, simple, uncomplicated happiness I'd come to see as my new normal. "Oh, I'm going to grab us some of that cold brew," Chloe said, kissing my cheek. "You hold the fort. I'll be right back." I stood by a stall selling local honey, watching her weave through the crowd, feeling a surge of love for her. For this life. Dave. The voice. It was thin, reedy, and full of a desperation that I barely recognized. I turned. It was her. Jessica. But it wasn't the Jessica I remembered. The confident, arrogant woman in the graduation robe was gone. The woman standing in front of me looked hollowed out. She was painfully thin, with dark circles under her eyes that no amount of makeup could hide. She was wearing cheap scrubs that looked like they hadn't been washed in days. Her hair a brittle, tangled mess. She looked like she'd aged 15 years in 3. "Jessica," I said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, a final confirmation. "I found you," she whispered, as if she couldn't believe it. Tears immediately welled up in her eyes. "Dave, I found you. I've been looking for you for so long." "I know," I said. My voice was calm. I wasn't shocked. I wasn't scared. Thanks to Sarah, I was prepared. Her face crumpled. "You made a mistake. A terrible, terrible mistake. You have to believe me." "A mistake?" I asked, crossing my arms. "Or a miscalculation?" "What? No, I loved you. I was so stressed," she stammered, the words tumbling out. The pressure from my family. The exams. I wasn't thinking straight. I drove all the way here. "Dave," I haven't slept in 2 days. Please, just listen to me. I'm listening. It's been so hard, she sobbed. And now people were starting to look. The residency is a nightmare. The money. God. The money. Dave. I'm drowning. I need you. I need you back. And there it was. Not, how are you? Not, you look happy? But, I need you. I felt the last lock click into place. The ice was complete. You haven't learned a thing. Have you, I said? My voice low and even. What are you talking about? She cried. I'm apologizing. What more do you want? You're not apologizing for what you did. Jessica, you're apologizing because of what happened to you. You're upset that your decision, your fresh start, didn't work out. That's not regret. That's just buyer's remorse. I took a step closer, and she flinched. You had a problem. Jessica, a big one. It's called the arrival fallacy. She just stared at me. Confused. What? The arrival fallacy. I repeated. It's that toxic little lie you tell yourself. The when I lie. When I become a doctor, then I'll be happy. When I get rid of my deadweight husband, then my real life will start. When I have the prestige and the money, then I'll finally be content. I saw a flash of recognition in her eyes. I had hit it. You spent 7 years so focused on that one single finish line that you convinced yourself that I wasn't the person supporting you. I was the baggage you'd have to drop the second you crossed it. You didn't just discard me. You burned down your entire foundation because you thought you'd be able to fly the second you got your diploma. How's that working out for you? She was openly sobbing now. Adespérate. Ugly cry. I was wrong. Okay, I was a fool. We can fix this. I know we can. I can move to Austin. I can transfer my residency. We can be what we were. What we were, I almost laughed. You mean, you get to be the star, and I get to be the helpful scaffolding that pays for it all. No, I'm not that guy anymore. He's gone. You tore him down. Remember, please. Dave. She begged, grabbing my arm. Her hand was bony. Her grip weak. I love you. I've always loved you. Please. Don't do this to me. There's no one else. There's still a chance. I looked over her shoulder. Chloe was walking back, holding 2 coffees, a puzzled smile on her face. I looked back at Jessica, at her tear-stained, Despérate face. This was the moment. This was the final judgment. No. Jessica, I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through her sobs like a razor. There's no chance. We can't fix this. I gently pulled her hand off my arm. I'm engaged. The words hit her like a physical blow. Her sobs stopped instantly. Her mouth fell open. Her eyes went from desperate to vacant. What? I'm engaged. I said again, clear and final. I pointed. That's her. Actually, my fiancée, Chloe. Jessica's head swiveled. She saw Chloe, beautiful and smiling, walking towards us. She looked at Chloe. Healthy. Happy. Secure. Then she looked back at me, the man she'd thrown away. Then she looked at her own reflection in the glass of the honey stall, haggard, broken, and desperate. The calculation was instant. The realization was total. She hadn't just lost me. She hadn't just made a mistake. She had been replaced. Chloe walked up, her smile fading as she saw Jessica's face. Dave, is everything okay? I didn't look at Jessica again. I turned my back on her, just as I had in that parking lot 3 years ago. I took one of the coffees from Chloe's hand, smiled at her, and touched her face. Everything's perfect, I said. Just a ghost from my old life. She's leaving. I put my arm around Chloe's waist and started to walk away. I heard a sound behind me, a thin, animal wail of pure loss. It was a sound I'd never forget. But I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking. With my new life. Into the bright Austin sunshine. That confrontation at the farmer's market should have been the end of it. It wasn't. Her desperation. Cut off from its source. Turned toxic. She didn't leave Austin. She escalated. 2 days later, she showed up at my office. Not my old job in Chicago. My new job in Austin. She must have followed me. Stalked me. I had underestimated the depths of her obsession. My office manager buzzed me. Dave, there's a woman here to see you. A Dr. Jessica. She's in the lobby. She seems extremely upset. I closed my eyes. I was prepared for this. I had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Call building security, I said, my voice perfectly calm. Have them wait by the elevator. I'll be down in 2 minutes. I walked to my desk, opened the bottom drawer, and pulled out 2 envelopes that my lawyer had prepared for me last year, just in case. When I walked into the lobby, it was a scene. She was pacing. Her scrubs wrinkled. Her hair wild. She was yelling at the receptionist, who looked terrified. He works here, I know he does. Just tell him I'm here. Jessica. She spun around. The relief on her face when she saw me was instantly replaced by a raw, frantic anger. Dave, you can't ignore me. You can't just throw me away. Security had arrived. 2 men in blazers. Standing quietly by the main doors. I'm not here to talk. Jessica. I said. I kept my voice low. Professional. This was my workplace. I'm here to give you 2 things. I held out the first envelope. It was a thick, legal-sized one. What is this? She asked. Her voice trembling. That, I said, is a restraining order. It has been filed with the Austin police. It legally prohibits you from coming within 500 feet of my home, my fiance's home, or this office. It also prohibits all contact, texts, calls, emails. Your harassment ends today. She stared at the envelope, her hand shaking so badly she couldn't take it. A restraining order against me, Dave. I'm your wife. You're my ex-wife. I corrected, and you are trespassing, and you are harassing me. That is the legal consequence. She wouldn't take it. I placed it on the reception desk in front of her. And this, I said, holding up the second envelope. This one was smaller, cream-colored, and elegant. This is for you. 2. Her eyes, full of tears and rage, looked at it. What is it? It's a wedding invitation. I said, mine, to Chloe. It's in 6 months. I wanted you to have it, so you could see, clearly and finally, that it's over. So you understand that I am not just moving on from you. I have moved on. You need to do the same. I placed the wedding invitation on top of the restraining order. She looked at the 2 envelopes, the legal end and the emotional end lying side by side. She didn't say a word. She just made a sound, a choked, broken sound. I turned to the security guards. Please escort this woman from the building. She is not welcome here. I turned and walked back to the elevators. And I did not look back. 6 months later, I stood on a small hill overlooking the Texas Hill Country, the Austin skyline faint in the distance. Chloe was standing across from me, her hands in mine. The wedding was small, maybe 40 people, our friends, our real family. I looked at Chloe as she said her vows, and I thought about the word revenge. My father-in-law, a good man, had once told me the best revenge is living well. I used to think that was just something people said to make themselves feel better. But standing there, with this incredible woman who saw me as a partner, not scaffolding, I realized it was the truth. Jessica's downfall, the debt, the loneliness, the crumbling career that wasn't my revenge. That was just consequences. That was the bill for her own choices, finally coming due. My revenge was this. My revenge was the promotion. It was the quiet home I'd built. It was the respect of my colleagues. It was the love of this strong, independent woman who celebrated me. My revenge wasn't her fault. It was my rise. I do, I said, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely and totally free. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.